Welcome to Debt to Cinema. I'm Stephen Mominex.
And I'm Brian Gillis. Like most people, we love going to the theater and catching the latest releases. However, it can sadly put a big dent in your wallet.
Fortunately, living in the digital age makes the viewing possibilities endless from the comforts of home.
Many of these films that you can see right from your couch, we're ashamed to say we miss, despite labeling ourselves cinephiles.
So join us as one or both of us cross off a title from our list of shame.
It can be an all-time essential classic,
or an underrated piece of cinema that's worth giving a shot.
Hell, it might just be some trashy film we want the other's opinion on. So sit tight and join us as we pay off our debts, $1 at a time.
On the sixth day, God created man. On the seventh day, he rested. And on the eighth day, in the year 2010, in a remote laboratory, an exiled scientist created something impossible. Unmistakably human, undeniably animal, on the island of Dr. Moreau.
I'd like to present my children.
Father?
Oh my God.
Man must not meddle with nature, but I have found the devil, and I've trapped the devil, and my God, can you take this heat? It is
bad.
It is so hot.
I actually like that ice bucket challenge hat. That
you know what? And
cool.
What is probably like his worst role ever? I
don't know about that.
It's fascinating, like how even when he doesn't care, he still has a pretty good presence.
I don't think he doesn't care.
He totally doesn't give a shit. First off,
bullshit.
I watched the documentary like the day after to see like what happened. You know, because I mean that story itself. There's enough tidbits to share here, but that story itself is fascinating on its own. But yeah, there's enough anecdotes there where he didn't care. Also because he was probably dealing with the suicide of his or death. I can't remember if it was suicide. The death of his.
According to whom, though? No one on this film had ever worked with him before. Every single person on the film only did the film to work with him. So who's to say if he didn't care?
Because he directly told them that he didn't care.
Of course he didn't care. He was fat and ugly and old and about to die. Like, he already shoved, like, fingers up someone's butt in Paris. Like,
okay, well,
he doesn't care anymore.
He cared. He was on board with what Richard Stanley's version of it. But what's her name? Veruza Bulk. She's friends with the director that should have been the director, and then she had to stay on board because she had a contract. But
no,
yeah,
I read the story where she hijacked a limo.
Oh yeah, no, there's a great anecdote though, like about the production of the movie, where she talks about approaching Marlon Brando and being like, "Hey, Mr. Brando, like, can we work on this scene together and just like think about like what our characters should be doing? Like, she's taking it seriously.
Work on a
yeah,
scene.
and he's just like,
no,
no, darling, like we don't need to do that. Everyone here is getting paid. Let's just enjoy it. And I have not read the script. Like he
never has read a script. That's why there's anecdotes across his entire life of him having flashcards in his hands and pockets or writing the script. The lines actually on the set, or having a fucking earpiece where people are reading him his lines. He is not an actor. You started with your Marlon Brando thing, whatever. Is this... I know you quote-unquote picked this because of Ron Perlman.
We were going with the Perlman
here.
thing. I thought that's,
sure.
So I guess that's... It took me actually a while to figure it out. I could not find him.
He's the blind one.
Yeah, I know. I figured it out.
I thought he was the hyena.
He is the sayer of the law, and he's good as that role, even though they could have cast anybody. But
was this your payback for Biodome?
No, I was actually not. I know that this is considered one of the worst movies of all time. I've never seen this before. Okay, so I'm not.
But
I'm also genuinely fascinated by failures, and there's just this is known as one of the worst movies ever made. That I'm just kind of like,
it isn't.
No, it isn't, but it's still fascinating to watch in context, especially when you bring up Val Kilmer and then there's Brando and there's this clashing of two egos on set, which there's a lot of great stories there about.
Val Kilmer's a more deserving ego. He's a great... I've yet to see him in one damn thing where I didn't love his portrayal of the character.
Oh, you know, he's
even
a total
in a role like
asshole
this,
in this,
where
and it works perfectly for the movie.
Yep.
A great tidbit I heard is that with Kill Mill and Brando, they were fighting so bad that there was a day where they were both staying in their trailers, and neither of them would come out unless the other one wanted to get out. Now, meanwhile, a bunch of the cast, like, that's already in all this makeup, you know, like that they're all like these creatures, these beasts of the island.
Sweating their asses off.
They're just waiting. And in the meantime, they're all just fucking smoking weed or drinking, and they're all fucking. Like, they literally are just, like, partying, like, just having an orgy, and it's insane while all this shit is happening that they kind of become the actual beasts of the island of Dr. Moreau, and it really just goes nuts, and, you know, they're having that, like, Trent Reznor music orgy, like, and all that shit. Like, it's... speaking of that scene, by the way, like, just when Val Kilmer is doing his Brando, it makes no sense. But I don't care. Like, I like it.
There are some good moments in this film. Like, it's not. I don't think it's a bad movie. It's just all over the fucking place. It's all over the place for lots and lots and lots of reasons, and that's why, you know, the studio system's bad.
Well, it's also just I think the history behind this kind of everything makes sense. Like, you know, what this was supposed to be with Richard Stanley is that there were going to be. Like, a lot of crazy ass touches.
Well, it was
going to
be like an $8 million movie too, and it ended up being like probably 35.
Yeah, it blew up because Val Kilmer got in there and Brando got in there, and like all the sudden
no, it
got
blew
all
up
these stars.
before Brando. It blew up because Val Kilmer had just made Batman Forever, the highest grossing Batman film at the time. He's like one of my favorite actors. Like, if he is in something, I don't care how big of a role, I don't care if he's good or bad, he just brings something to it in the same way that, you know, so many people love Bruce Willis. I could give a shit less, to be honest. But there's something about Val Kilmer. Maybe it's because, you know, not my obsession, but Batman Forever was...
Come on, man.
I love Batman, but Batman Forever has like a special spot in my life because it was the first... It was... When I was coming of age, it was... Or not even... Scratch that. It was the only Batman... Not the only. It was the first Batman film released when I was alive. So that alone, and how
Batman
campy
Returns.
and over the top and everything... No, well, I was fucking like 6 months old, okay?
Yeah, but you were alive. Come on.
Not really. I wasn't conscious.
You should check out...
I wasn't a human being.
You should check out Ingrid Goes West. You're going to love it.
Is he in that too?
That's all I'm going to say, just in regards to Batman. But
okay,
yeah, you should check it out because
maybe
you'll love at least an aspect of it.
I'm sure it's on Netflix. I'll check it out when it gets to that, or Amazon, or probably Amazon.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, when you get down to like Kilmer, like okay, whatever the fuck he's doing, or just kind of doing his own thing, even Brando.
As soon as he's introduced, man.
Thulis though in this just.
He plays it pretty fucking safe.
He plays it straight, and I guess he's taking it seriously. But like that's where I think, you know, it's clear. I think what the problem is here is that there's no visions because they like. Well,
there's visions.
I mean, here's what's messed up about it. Like, where do I start? Because it's basically Richard Stanley, like, you know, this up and coming director who had some successful art house flicks that, like, you know, he definitely is a visionary and has a very specific style. He wanted a specific movie, and then he got fired. So they bring in a veteran director to work it. It's kind of like how you remember the Benicio del Toro Wolfman?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I saw it in theaters. I can't forget. It was a good date, bad movie.
Yeah, that was supposed to be Mark Romanek that did that. They were building the sets and everything, and then he stepped out. Yeah, he steps out last minute, and then right before shooting it, Joe Johnston steps in. And here's this director that, like, you know, there's a production where there's clearly vision there, and there's someone trying to get something specific.
Yeah, but Romanek left because Universal wanted to do CG, and he wanted to do practical.
No, that's what Johnston
CG's really bad in that.
That's what Johnston
is that what he wanted?
Yeah,
well, even
Johnston
still,
all of a sudden went to Rick Baker
horrible.
and was like, no, I want to do that. Like, so you got a practical makeup on Del Toro, but the transformations themselves, they're CG. You know, I don't know what specifically happened with the material. I know that there was trouble similar in that regard. It wasn't this batshit insane. But then, yeah, like, you get stuff redone to the script. You all of a sudden have Marlon Brando deciding he wants an ice bucket for whatever reason.
No, that's nothing. That's just like a singular scene, nothing thing. That's talking about his little,
it's
like,
just a
midget
little
baby,
point.
like whatchamacallit
the
thing.
smallest man alive, which I don't know his name, but he's just like, I like this guy. I want him in every scene with me.
He's the smallest man on the planet. We should have him in the movie. This is about freaks, right? You don't have to give him any lines of dialogue. I don't think he speaks. Let's just put him in the movie.
He plays like a little piano, yeah.
He fucking chews up like 3 or 4 different scenes. Like when he hands him that power device right before Brando gets killed. I was like, what the where'd he even come from? How'd he hear this confrontation? Did someone ring a little bell? But like that moment, okay, this might be a quote-unquote bad movie. When they're playing piano together, that is referenced straight up in Austin Powers. When they do Just the Two of Us, they do that moment where he's playing the piano on top of the piano. But when you see it here, it's not fucking crazy. It's kick-ass. I was like, that is pretty cool. Look, they're doing a duet. I was like, is this like his midget clone? Like, not even midget, because that's like, he's smaller than Mini-Me. Like, he's smaller than Vern Troyer.
The world's
he
smallest
is
man,
small.
He's really,
he's very
really
small.
Yeah.
Like, when I first saw the island, I was like, is this, like, not the island itself, but once I saw the creatures, I was like, especially their getup, the ones in the house, like the quote-unquote sons and daughters, I was like, okay, so this is like a Fantasy Island movie now. They're all wearing tuxedos, and they say master, and they're smiling all the time. And then you have this British cocksucker who's just like, if he had a good attitude, if David Thewlis like didn't play it so straight-laced and like serious, like it could have been a good movie. Because
Here's my point that I'm kind of getting to with this, is that, there's all this, but there really is no vision. Because you bring in John Frankenheimer, and he doesn't have a specific vision or idea. And with this
worse
script,
than that,
with what they're
he was
doing...
Like, the original script was probably pretty okay.
Yeah, well, with
then
what they're doing,
they had it rewritten.
It's
and
just
then when
plot, though. Like there is no character. Like David Thewlis, no character. He's just a guy that was on a ship, like
on a boat,
on a plane, got stranded,
on a plane that crashed on a raft.
Yeah, and he's supposed to be your gateway and react to things and be horrified, but you don't really care about anything. Like he's reacting to stuff, but he's a nothing guy that you know nothing about.
But when this movie starts, when you have that voiceover where you're like, oh yeah, this kind of does sound like it's H.G. Wells, right?
Yeah.
When you have him on that boat and you see the shark in the water, like, oh, it's like, wow. Like, it's maybe not that impactful, but after the pretty good opening credits, the way with those eyes work and
the
stuff,
music, like, it's
pretty eerie, man.
Good. Yeah, it really gets a good feel to it.
I was like, yeah, this is going to be a thriller. I'm interested. This is pretty good for mid-90s in terms of like just not CG but like title sequences, like very inspired by like the MTV generation of things.
It has
and like his voiceover
good setup, just
on the raft. The moment that you're introduced to Val Kilmer when he saves him, and like the whole what is this? Oh, don't worry, I'm hydrating you. It's a little bit of Jimi Hendrix.
Are you a doctor?
Like, just enjoy it.
I'm kind of a vet.
I'm more like a vet. Yeah, like that whole sequence on the boat is good. Like, but as soon as he escapes from his quote unquote prison, actually his safety harness, so he wouldn't get killed on the island or whatever. It just goes off the rails so fast. There isn't even like a mystery. It's not like you see shadows in the background, like, oh yeah, these don't look human. It's straight 100. It goes from 0 to 100 real quick. Yeah. Oh, here they are. Here's one coming out of this woman with like 8 tits. Here's these fetuses in the jars. Here's the civilization. Here's these. Here's that. Here's Brando. Here's this. He's in like this ash makeup. Like you get so much shit so quick that it just loses all of its momentum. It goes 100% off the rails, and there's no saving it.
You don't really get any discovery, and then it suddenly just kind of jumps to the rebellion at that point. Which I mean, that itself, like
the rebellion's
I don't remember names, but I mean that itself is cool. Like the idea of taking
the
out
hyena thing is cool. Yeah, like his best friend, the cheetah guy who was killed for no reason because the fucking butler's an asshole. But as soon as he found out that figuring out. Like, transgressing, using his man brain, even though he's a beast, to figure out the microchips thing, pretty good. Like, all that stuff was good. Becoming God, I really like the way they overpower Moreau.
Yeah,
but
I also like that ending, too. With like,
just right at that
conflict is like, so who's the God really now? Like, that was really cool.
God. You're God number one, very Wonder Woman-esque if you kind of think about it. And... The ending of this film also, I do like him going on the raft
and
with
the
his
note
monologue.
with Ron Perlman, who gets the like really the final word.
Yeah, the real
spells out the entire
word.
moral behind it. But
we
yeah,
don't
it's
need
a good scene.
scientists, we don't need doctors, but then even just like the montage of the brutality on TV. Like, I'm surprised they didn't do Rodney King, to be honest, considering this is only a couple years after that. Probably would have really made it a stinker. But no, the opening 15, 20 minutes are fine. The final 15 minutes are fine. That whole sequence when he's like going right before like the parlor room scene, right before he kills Brando, or they kill Brando,
Which
that's a
good
line,
moment,
like,
honestly.
Yeah,
like,
it's a good
that's
moment.
a moment in this where I was like, actually, I think that's great, where Brando's playing Rhapsody in Blue, and there's sort of there's still like curiosity still getting to them,
before
where it's not like they're all like, you don't get that sense where they're all about to like kill him. Like, he's doing a good job of distracting them, but then the issue comes back up, which, by the way, Kilmer knew, by the way, and he didn't fucking alert him.
No. That's why Kilmer's... I'm telling you, it's not obvious, but it's kind of alluded to in the way that
makes sense
when the
like,
first
when you
things
think about
he
it,
says,
but they just don't have the threads there to make you think that they carefully thought it out for the movie.
They have the threads, it's just the movie's all over the place.
Yeah, that's what
in
I'm
the
saying.
way that Kilmer does the impersonation of Brando after he dies. That's all he does. All of his dialogue after he's dead is an impersonation. Like, literally, so he's dressed like him with like a fat suit, The way that he's throwing the drugs in the lair and all of the beasts are fucking each other, like everything he's doing, the wink that you get kind of when he's like, oh yeah, he killed a bunny, oh, he shot this thing, he gave this person this gun, oh, he's not letting them use the radio. Like, everything that happens, like, it's pretty obvious that he's just totally like a nihilist. He doesn't give a shit anymore. The way that he's kissing the female monsters when he's giving them their dosages. Like, literally kissing them on the mouth. Like, he didn't give a shit. He's fucking shirtless. He's running around doing his drugs that he's making, mind you. He's creating these drugs. Someone who won the Nobel Peace Prize was attracted to this blossoming, like, young mind, invited him to his island for God knows what, and what he ended up being, was a veterinarian, or even worse than that, like, basically a jailer. He had pent up anger for fucking 10 years. He thought he was going to be a part of something important, and instead he's just dicked around, and I'm surprised they didn't have a sequence where he put on, like, that SPF 5000 on Brando, to be honest. I would have loved to have seen something like that, but I'm sure that's because, they hated each other, or came to hate each other. But I don't know. I don't think it's a bad movie. I can't say
it's a movie.
It's
it's
solid.
definitely a mess, but it's like I
there
guess that's
are
why they brought
thematic
Frankenheimer
elements
in, is
there.
that they were able to like at least stitch together a movie at the end of it. But there is a plot. That's really the best thing I can say about this. Like, this is a full on dime a dozen where
it's
there's
not
no...
even dime a dozen though. It's like.
Because it's me being nice, where it's like, this is like a disposable movie where there's a beginning, there's an end, but there are no characters, there's no real investment. It's just, okay, David Thewlis has a thing for this this cat-like mutated cat
woman.
human, whatever you want to put
Like,
it, and then there's a lot of
horribly-
interesting creatures in there, and then there's
how
a
horribly
moral
that
in there,
thought,
and
like, that plot is just thrown out there. Because at first, when you see her dancing, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I was brought to this island." Why would she lie to him? Why would she lie to him? Why don't you just say, "Oh yeah, my father"? She's talking about her father, and
it's not exactly
it's
a well-thought-out
implied
script, but
it's so bad. But it's like when her teeth start showing, and then you don't actually see her ears, and it's like, well, even if that's true, you're pretty old. She's definitely older than 17. He's only been doing the fucking shit for 17 years. In what way is this possible? Like, it's so mind-boggling. Even if she were 17, is she the first one then? And if she's the first one, why do the rest of them have fucking hair everywhere? Why are they dark when they got fucked up hands and hooves and horns? Like, That's the stuff why people probably say it's one of the worst movies ever made. In the way that, they say the same things about Waterworld, because it's not the
mainly
most
it's just the
thought-out
performance
movie.
of Brando here. Like, it's kind of easy to make fun of. Like, even when, especially when he has that ice bucket moment, he's just like, oh, lower, give me some. Ow, no, you're hurting me. Like, he's completely
beyond the
slumming
ice bucket
in that moment.
is what I'm saying, though. Like, probably the best piece of trivia I read about this movie, and when I read it, I was like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense, is I don't know if you watched, like, the early seasons of South Park, like, when it actually was new.
Yeah, the Nambla thing is what you're getting at?
Yeah, the crazy doctor on that show with the yellow Hawaiian shirt and the small monkey, like, human thing, the pygmy, that's always doing weird, like, experiments and putting butts on humans' faces and stuff. That's this character. He even sounds like Brando. He looks like Brando. Like, that's a joke that Trey Parker and Matt Stone got in at Comedy Central because, like, that first season was like 97, 98. That's only a year or two after this movie came out that I'm sure for an audience that we weren't, it killed. And even still, if you're watching reruns, because he's not really a character anymore, he's just like, he's a stock character. He just fills up the extras. For the people, for the very few that saw this, were familiar with it, outside of, like, maybe watching the Razzies, like, that was a joke that probably landed really hard. This movie, it's like, I almost kind of want to buy it. Like, I wouldn't mind actually owning this, like, just to lend it to people and know, like, oh yeah, have you heard of this shit before?
I think it's far more fascinating to watch when you know what the production history is behind it.
Yeah, doing the research after, like, it totally made it fun. But yeah, it's one of those Hollywood, like, this is the studio that brought you the Lord of the Rings.
Like, they had A Nightmare on Elm Street at that point. They had
not yet.
No,
well,
yeah,
no, they did.
80s,
they didn't. They also had Freddy.
That was their big thing.
They had Freddy and Jason. I mean.
Yeah, no, eventually
Freddy,
they would,
Jason,
but, like, what I'm saying is, New Line was not one of those respected studios. They were a B player, and this is like...
They weren't really a part of Warner Brothers. They were truly a sister studio that only did genre shit. This movie, it's fitting for October. I think it's a fine Hooptober or Halloween Horror-thon if you're me. I like it for Val Kilmer. I think I'm not a fan of Marlon Brando, but he definitely demands the screen anytime you see him, and he definitely does it here. And it's one of his final roles, so you got to look at it that way. It's one of the final roles that Val Kilmer did before, he kind of lost touch with Hollywood and got fat. Like, I don't even know what the rating is, to be honest, because it's not dime a dozen. I think it's bigger than that, just because of the creatures here and some of the thematic elements that we're talking about. The cast, the production behind it, its history. The source material, it's not a silver dollar by any stretch of the imagination. It's definitely not a wooden nickel. I guess it's like dime a dozen, but with, like, it's a dime that has, like, shit caked on it, and you don't even want to pick it up to wash it off, but it's worth something.
That's fair.
Like, that's what it is. It's like a bloody nickel, or, like, I don't know. Yeah, we got to come up with something shittier than dime a dozen. Shitty dime. I don't know. Like, it's definitely interesting.
It's one of those. Yeah, it's one of those things where, you know what? I'd say I'm more enthusiastic about recommending the documentary because just the production behind this, it's insane.
Thanks for listening. We hope it's been a pleasure.
If you enjoyed this episode, you can listen to more by checking out the Dollar Reviews show, where we cover theatrical and streaming releases, as well as give our 2 cents on anything we sought out on our own, whether that be TV, music, etc.
You can find all of our content at dollarreviews.net. Follow us on Twitter or like us on Facebook at Dollar Reviews.
And we're also on Google Play Music, iTunes, Pocket Cast, TuneIn, Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube, just about anywhere on the internet, with hours of content available to you for free. But for those of you that feel that the show is worth your dollar, you can send us a donation at patreon.com/dollarreviews. Contributions not only earn our undying love, but they also make it possible for us to improve our recording equipment and to give you the highest quality episodes possible. But more importantly, they'd be helping us acquire the content to review. Trips to the multiplex are expensive, and the more donations we receive, the more films we can review for your listening pleasure.
If you listen somewhere we're currently not available, You'd like to contribute some talking points, send a Death to Cinema request, or if you just want to laugh at us, you can do so by reaching out to us on social media or send an email to brian@dollarviews.net. You can follow me personally on Twitter at Brian Gillis, that's BRYONGILLIS, and now you know how to spell the email too, and also under the same name on the lovely site Letterboxd, which acts as my film diary, where I rate films that I'm watching, write the occasional review, and even sometimes compile lists.
You can also find me on Twitter at S_MTX, and also follow my film diary at Letterboxd under the same name, where I log everything I watch and sometimes write brief reviews.
That's it for this week. Until next time, keep the change.